Welcome back to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. My name is Andrew Erickson. Today we're going to be discussing my 8 players to draft for round 3 of NFL.com's Fantasy Football Playoff Challenge. For this list, we're going to be looking at 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 DST, and 1 kicker. Let's go. Quarterback, Joe Burrow, Cincinnati Bengals. It's really close between Joe Burrow and Jalen Hurts. It's my favorite quarterback option this week, but I lean toward the Bengals quarterback with a superior matchup and an undeniable swagger. Since week 10, the Chiefs are allowing the 5th most fantasy points per game to quarterbacks, and their defense has struggled mightily in the red zone all year, ranking 31st in red zone scoring touchdown rate. The Bengals offense has thrived in the red zone, ranking 5th in red zone scoring offense. Burrow has also faced the Chiefs earlier this season, shredding KC for 286 passing yards and 2 passing touchdowns. He also rushed 11 times for 46 yards and scored en route to a 30-plus fantasy point outing. Running back Christian McCaffrey, San Francisco 49ers. CMC has been the must-own running back since the start of the NFL.com Fantasy Football Playoff Challenge, and that won't change on championship weekend, even with his ailing calf injury. Because before he suffered the injury in the divisional round, Elijah Mitchell was an afterthought on offense. So although Mitchell outcarried McCaffrey 14-10, rushing for 51 yards versus CMC's 35 rushing yards, 13 of Mitchell's carries came in the second half. 11 came in the final 2 drives of the game in the fourth quarter. And despite CMC's limited snaps, he still led the team with a 31% target share, catching 6 balls for 22 yards on 8 targets. The Eagles ranked 24th in DVOA versus running backs in the passing game, and inside the top 10 in terms of receptions, targets, and receiving yards to opposing running backs since week 12. They're allowing 5 catches for 41 yards per game. McCaffrey owns an 18% target share over the last 3 weeks, setting him up to be RB1 in fantasy this week. Running back Joe Mixon, Cincinnati Bengals. If you're building a roster with Joe Burrow quarterback, you are betting on the Bengals coming away with a win at Arrowhead. And that means you want to litter your roster with Bengals players, including RB1 Joe Mixon. Mixon was a battering ram that could not be stopped versus the Bills. He rushed 20 times for 105 yards and 1 touchdown, playing 56% of the snaps. He earned 4 goal line carries, which is going to give him massive touchdown upside in a matchup versus the Chiefs' run defense that the Bengals should be able to take advantage of. KC allowed over 100 rushing yards to Samaje Perine when these teams faced last in Week 13. They've allowed 4.5 yards per carry to running backs since Week 16 as the 24th ranked run defense per DVOA. The Chiefs have also bled fantasy points to running backs in the passing game, allowing the most receptions to the position per game at 6 this season. Wide receiver Jamar Chase, Cincinnati Bengals. Coming as a surprise to literally no one, we have another Bengal in the optimal lineup here with Jamar Chase. The Bengals' alpha wide receiver owns a 32% target share since Week 13, averaging just under 8 receptions, 84 receiving yards, and 11.5 targets per game. And he has heavily been relied on when facing man coverage this season, which KC predominantly deploys. Versus man coverage, Chase owns a whopping 39% target share, 33% target rate per route run, and 52% air yard share since coming back from his injury. Simply put, Chase is going to get the rock and makes the Chiefs' secondary pay. Kansas City ranks 31st in DVOA against number 1 wide receivers this year, allowing on average 81 receiving yards per game to opposing alphas. Wide receiver A.J. Brown, Philadelphia Eagles. There's really no wrong answer to sliding in Devonta Smith or A.J. Brown as the next wide receiver in your optimal lineup. The two have seen nearly identical usage in the last 2 weeks with Jalen Hurts back under center, with both commanding north of a 29% target share. And the matchup is salivating against the 49ers defense that has allowed the most fantasy points and 3rd most receiving yards to wide receivers since Week 7. However, Smith was more productive this past week with Brown dealing with a hip injury. But before the divisional round, Brown was Hurts' go-to wide receiver the 3 games beforehand, compiling an absurd 35% target share, a 55% air yard share. With both guys seeing seldom usage from the slot, where the 49ers and safety Jimmy Ward have absolutely been destroyed, I side with Brown due to his role as the team's primary deep threat. Smith has been used more underneath the last 3 weeks, with an A.dot no higher than 8 yards in any game. Meanwhile, Brown has been almost used exclusively downfield, with 6 targets of 20-plus air yards and a team-high 14.2 average depth of target. The 49ers have been devastated versus the long ball all year, ranking 24th in DVOA versus deep passes up to 15 yards downfield. And it's been number 1s doing the majority of damage, considering they've allowed the 4th most targets and 5th most receiving yards to opposing number 1s this season. So yes, people, this week is AJB wide receiver 1 season. Tight end Travis Kelce, Kansas City Chiefs. The Bengals are allowing the most targets to tight ends, 9 per game since week 9, in addition to the second most receptions and fourth most receiving yards to tight ends. Ergo, it's a strong matchup for Travis Kelce, fresh off a game that featured 17 targets, 14 catches for 98 yards, and a godlike 49% target share. Expecting these numbers for a second straight week is aggressive, but there's no reason to think that the volume will get away from Kelce as a hobbled Patrick Mahomes' primary underneath option. Just last week, we saw Bills tight end Dawson Knox haul in 5 of his 7 targets for 65 yards, leading Buffalo in both receptions and yardage. Kicker, Harrison Butker, Kansas City Chiefs. Among the remaining playoff teams, 3 of the 4 defenses rank inside the top 5 in fewest field goals allowed per game this season. The one defense that doesn't are the Cincinnati Bengals, who have allowed the 5th most field goals on defense this season and 2.3 field goals per game while playing on the road. Considering the Bengals' top-tier red zone defense and Mahomes' ankle status, KC may be forced into converting more points with Harrison Butker's leg. Philadelphia Eagles DST. Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, and Brock Purdy. One of these names is not like the others, and that's why the DST to target is Philadelphia. Purdy is the worst remaining quarterback among the final 4 and will likely see a ton of pressure from the Eagles' elite front. Per the 33rd team's trenches matchup tool, San Francisco's offensive line is at the biggest mismatch disadvantage this week when they should drop back to throw. That ensuing chaos should put Purdy in position to make some mistakes and score points for the Philly DST. And that's going to do it for my breakdown for the optimal lineup for NFL.com's Fantasy Football Playoff Challenge. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, subscribe, and share with all of your friends. And good luck to everybody Conference Championship weekend.
Thanks for tuning in to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. Don't forget to check out our featured videos. And while you're at it, make sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Fantasy Pros, so you can get the latest news and updates to give you the edge you need in your fantasy league.